Hey, everyone. Hoping everyone is good. Hoping everyone is great. Hoping that you're feeling good from last Wednesday to this Wednesday. For this episode, I wanted to revisit something that we talked about, but I want to go in it a little bit deeper. And it is the problem that comes with asserting your boundaries and the other person not understanding why that boundary exists. And many times what happens is that we lose people based on us asserting a boundary, or it is because you haven't given them reasonable explanation as to why that boundary is there in the first place. It can get deep. Ties can sever, or arguments may ensue, because when a person doesn't get the answers that they want in the appointed time or in a reasonable explanation, they'll continue to badger the person who does not give them what they want. When two people are deeply passionate about their beliefs, about how they live, what they value, and what they've learned to protect, the conversation can quickly become uncomfortable, especially when one person has a clear boundary and the other does not understand why that boundary even exists. And see, this discomfort doesn't always come from any kind of hostility. It comes from a genuine desire to understand. Because people ask questions for clarity. They just want their context. They want some kind of logic. They even want reasons. But see, the problem exists when one person feels that additional, explanation isn't actually necessary, or it isn't safe, or it simply just isn't available, and the other person experiences that lack of explanation that can be felt like resistance or avoidance, or even some type of rejection. And see, you may have experienced this in a relationship. It happens in relationships all the time. For example, one partner may say, I don't want to talk about this late at night anymore. And to them, that boundary exists because late night conversations often escalate and it becomes emotional, or it just may leave them dysregulated. But the other partner may hear that boundary as disinterest, shutdown, or a lack of care. And then they ask, well, why you just can't talk about it now? And maybe the boundary holder explains, but the explanation doesn't satisfy the other person's anxiety or their urgency. So the question keeps looping and coming back again and again. And baby, at that point, both people are triggered for different reasons. One feels pushed past the limit, the other feels abandoned in the moment, and instead of the conversation and opening up, guess what? It becomes narrow. It becomes tiring. It becomes a circular conversation and emotionally expensive very, 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 very quickly. And see, what tends to happen next is really a familiar loop. Because my baby, each person speaks from their own perspective, offering what feels like their reasonable, valid points. Because the boundary holder explains their boundary. The other person asks for more clarification. The boundary holder feels pressured and repeats the same explanation, maybe with a different wording, and the other person still doesn't feel satisfied because the explanation doesn't resolve their discomfort or align with their needs. And now the conversation stops being about understanding. And now it's penetrating. It's about each person trying to get through, about changing how someone may feel. And also, you may experience something similar to this at work with a coworker. And a coworker might say, I don't respond to messages after business hours. Oof. And that boundary may exist because of burnout. It may, exist because of mental health or the need to protect their time with their family. But another coworker may see that boundary as a lack of teamwork or just them not wanting to be available. And they may say something like, well, I don't understand why you just can't answer the question because it's real quick, Now the person who has and holds the boundary feels that they have to justify their personal limits in a professional environment. They begin explaining their schedule, their stressors, their responsibilities, things that shouldn't have to be disclosed just to be respected. And see, that's when the irritation often sets in. Because nothing is really moving. The same points are being recycled. Perspectives, they stay fixed. And both people leave the interaction feeling tense instead of having some form of clarity. And this loop isn't caused by a lack of emotional intelligence. I mean, many of us have it. It's really caused by a misaligned goal. And if you look at it from your point of view in every situation that you've been in, most difficult conversations around boundaries fail because both people are operating under the same hidden assumption. If I explain something well enough, you're going to agree. Or if I don't understand it enough, I can soften that boundary. But boundaries, let me say this. Boundaries are not designed to be persuaded. They are really designed to protect. And until both people shift the goal of their conversation from being understood to understanding the function of the boundary, there is no real resolution available. See, because a boundary does not exist to convince someone else of the logic. It exists because at some point, experience taught the boundary holder that something was not sustainable, or it wasn't safe, or it just was not aligned. And see, that experience may be emotional. It may seem rational. It may be something that they can articulate or something they only can summarize, because going deeper for them, it just absolutely costs too much. And this is also a great explanation and situation when it comes to families. And this is the hardest, I think. This is the hardest. When you have to assert a boundary with family members, because one thing about family members is they think that they can always be in your space, always be in your business. They can, because of proximity and because they are familiar with you, that you cannot assert a boundary around them, because who else gonna love you but me? I've heard this many times before with family. It is that we are open. Whatever goes into the space of family, we are all supposed to know. But I'm also one of those that I don't just like to discuss my personal life at gatherings in an open setting. And honestly, that boundary existed because conversations, when you with family, sometimes they turn into judgment or gossip, or it can be emotional harm. But another family, again, might say, well, we family, we just going to be open. To them, the boundary feels like distance because you don't want to go into your personal situation. And to the boundary holder, baby, you are out here surviving. And here's the point that often gets missed. Boundaries do not require agreement to be valid. I'll say that again. I don't need you to sign the dotted line for you to agree to my boundaries. I'm going to tell you what it is, and whether you choose it or not, it's still going to be there. It is not determined by whether you decide or not. You don't have to like somebody else's boundary. You don't have to understand it fully. You don't even have to need that boundary yourself. You only have to recognize that it exists and that it belongs to that person. And that's where the questions become very complicated. Questions can really build understanding, but only if both people are clear about what is being asked. Because there is definitely a difference between curiosity and persuasion. Curiosity, is verbiage, then I want to understand how this works for you, okay? And persuasion, it'll most likely sound like, I want to find the angle where this stops being necessary for you. And the boundary holder can usually feel the difference immediately, even if the words come out polite. And when questions are asked to kind of deteriorate that boundary rather than understand it, the conversation becomes very imbalanced. The boundary holder is now having to defend their right. They're having to justify, while the other person remains in a position of just evaluating the whole situation, and that's unfair. The imbalance is what makes these conversations feel very, very draining, because the boundary holder starts to feel like their no is incomplete unless it comes with enough evidence to satisfy someone else. And that boundary turns into a debate. And resolution often depends on allowing boundaries to exist without demanding some form of justification beyond what the boundary holder is willing to offer. And that's that hard shift, especially for people who value communication and clarity. But explanation is optional. It is not owed. I don't owe you an explanation as to why I have a boundary up. And see, for the person on the other side, the one asking the questions, this can definitely feel very uncomfortable. It may feel like, baby, they shutting you out. But not every boundary is to invite you into the full story and the full scope of why a person is doing what they are doing. Sometimes the most respectful response is just to acknowledge it. You can surely say that I don't fully understand it, but I hear, or I know, or I acknowledge that it matters to you. That sentence alone can stop the loop. It can stop going back and forth. Many times you do not have an answer. You don't have to have an answer to something that you don't understand, especially when it's dealing with the boundary holder. And out of respect, they just put that wall up. Another thing that I want us to recognize is when a conversation is no longer moving forward. Because what we don't recognize, and I think what we don't look at, is that every discussion does not require closure. Not every, difference needs to have some type of compromise. Not every moment is the right moment. Sometimes the most skillful thing that we can do is just move past it with a pause. And when I ask people to pause, I'm not asking for us to avoid it. I'm not necessarily asking you to just give up. It's just, I'm going to preserve me in this situation over damaging a thing. And see, with a relationship, I think the best way of versing it or saying it to someone is to, I want to come back to this when we're both calm. Or when we are at work and it has reached its limit, I think we've reached the limit of what this conversation can resolve. When it comes to family, I'm not continuing this discussion today. And understanding does not always mean that we got to have some type of resolution. And resolution does not always mean agreement. And sometimes the most effective outcome is just mutual recognition. It doesn't mean that I gotta convert you. It doesn't mean that I have to pressure you into it. It does not mean that I have to exhaust you in order for you to come over to my side. You can definitely respect a boundary without adopting it. And you can also acknowledge someone's experience without even sharing it. And you can definitely stop a conversation without having to end the relationship. That is what allows both people to remain intact. Boundary. And the conversations about boundaries are not about winning or convincing someone. It's really about you learning to stop pushing people. When listening is the determining factor, you'll recognize that all it takes is that you are honoring what has already been said. And that's really the most respectful way, the most respectful, responsible way to respond in a situation. And sometimes, understanding the function of a boundary is all that's required. If you are having issues with a person who does not understand your boundary and continue to push, end it there. Because there are some people who will try to push their way into trying to convince you that your boundary is unfair, or that somehow it will hurt them. Listen, I say this as well. My boundary is not going to cause you to die. Okay? At the least, or at the very greatest of something. You ain't gonna die because I don't want to discuss my problems. I don't want you to know my business. My boundary is don't show up at my door unannounced. My boundary is that I don't like to be in conversations when you're talking about other people. There's a list of things. Listen, I can assert that boundary and say, listen, I don't want to be a part of this. Are you gonna die? I ain't never seen nobody die over a boundary. And if you are the person on the other side who feels like they have to continuously ask questions for clarity, I want you to really ask yourself, is it curiosity or is it persuasion? Are you genuinely curious as to the boundary, or are you trying to persuade someone to move their boundary away so that you can still have access to them? And these are the questions that we have to ask ourselves when we are going into this space of growing for ourselves. No one is required to sign the dotted line in agreement to a boundary. All you have to do is acknowledge that it's a thing. Because see now, when it come to you, and you want someone to make sure that your boundary is seen and it's felt, you also feel riddled that the person will still keep coming at you in order for that boundary to be lessened. So to end this episode, for each person, whether you are the boundary holder or the boundary questioner, put yourself in the shoes and ask yourself, why is it? Number one, if you're the boundary holder, why is it that I got to keep explaining why my boundary is a thing? I'm going to shut it down right then. And the person who questions the boundary, what is it that you need from this person that you feel like you got to have all access to them without any limitations? The more we know, the more that we grow. And I think that is the hardest thing, is coming from a place where you are limitless in the way that you show up with people who've always had access to you in every regard, and then recognizing that it tires you out and that boundaries must be inserted for you to live your life in a way that is congruent to the life that you want in the future. Thank y'all for listening. I will see you guys next week. This was a good episode, my babies. This was a good episode. I came up with this episode based on the fact that people were still asking questions about how to utilize their boundaries and be strong in it. And in a short answer, it is nobody is required to sign that dotted line when the boundary is a thing. The boundary is something that you assert and you walk away from. And if people don't like it, they just don't like it. But it doesn't mean that relationships have to be torn because the person who receives the boundary, at the end of the day, they feel some type of way. Well, let them. Did they die? All right, babies. See you next Wednesday.